Hello and welcome to Someday Models. My name is Tom and I have a large stack of second-hand vintage model kits sitting around in my cupboard that I have big plans to absolutely, certainly, definitely, totally gonna build someday. Now we will be having an out-of-the-box look at this model kit. Would you like to see the build video? Subscribe to make sure you do. The build will happen someday. Today, however, we will be taking a look at this currently available Curtiss P-40 Kittyhawk starter kit in 1:72 scale. This version is the current release from 2024, while the tool is originally from 1972, so in spirit it still is a vintage kit, especially since the panel lines are all raised. I hope you like rivets. The Americans called all versions of this plane the Warhawk, while the British named it the Tomahawk, with upgraded D and later versions called the Kittyhawk. The Kittyhawk was introduced in 1942. Because it did not do so well at high altitude, it was primarily used outside the European theatre. The Tomahawks and Kittyhawks were flown with great success in the North African theatre, playing a pivotal role during the campaigns there in 1941 and 1942. It was considered superior to the Hawker Hurricane, most of the Italian early war fighters, and even the German Messerschmitt Bf-109E at lower altitudes. From May 1942, however, they switched from being tasked as air superiority fighters to close support aircraft, which led to a significant uptick in losses. The Tomahawk and Kittyhawk served in several theatres around the world, especially with Commonwealth nations, and as Warhawks with the U.S. Army in the Far East Theatre, and also a couple of thousand were given to the Soviets as part of the Lend-Lease deal. A couple of famous squadrons that used this plane were the Flying Tigers in China and the Red Tails All-African-American Squadron over Italy. The Decals are for the Royal Australian Air Force and the U.S. Army Air Force. The Curtiss P-40 is the successor to the Hawk 81A, better known as the Tomahawk. It first took flight on 22 May 1941 under the designation of Hawk 87A. An order for 540 were made by Great Britain, who called it the Kittyhawk 1A, and other Commonwealth countries. A second order was made for 1,500 planes for the U.S. Army Air Force that used it under the name of Curtiss P-40, who then sold them back to Great Britain in virtue of the Lend-Lease agreement. The P-40 Kittyhawk 1A was first used by the Armed Forces of New Zealand, South Africa, Canada, and the USSR. A fleet of 25 Kittyhawk 1As was sold by Great Britain to Australia. Indeed, at the beginning of 1942, the Australian territories were threatened by the Japanese advance, and an Australian squadron was formed of young pilots who trained before entering service for Squadron 75 in Port Moresby, New Guinea. Technical specs: length 9.65 meters, wingspan 11.38 meters, height 3.79 meters. Max takeoff weight 3,996 kilos. Max speed 579 kilometers an hour. Cruising speed 435 kilometers an hour. Service ceiling 8,839 meters. Flying range 1,046 kilometers. Engine 1 Allison V1710-39. Power 1,166 horsepower. Armament and payload 6 times Browning 12.7 machine guns, External load 907 kilos. 13,738 P-40s were built in all. During the later parts of the war, they were generally replaced by P-51 Mustangs. I recently purchased this starter kit at a local store, and I opened it specifically to check the paints, as I remember that starter kit's paints are notorious for having problems. I was very happy to see they are proper little bottles and not those horrible flip-lid pots several other companies use. So there we have it, the contents of a current Heller P-40 Kittyhawk starter kit in 1:72 scale. This kit is currently available in shops. Here's the next kit to feature in an out-of-the-box video. Subscribe and ding the bell if you would like to see it. Comment below if you have any requests for a particular aircraft. You never know, I might just have it.